Yo guys, my name is KressleKey and welcome back to another episode of Trade Talk. Again, I'm sorry, but Aaron is out of town this week, so we won't actually be able to record together yet again. But don't worry, next week hopefully we will be able to record together and everything will be fine. So these are the trades that are going to be effective going into week 5 of the WBE. There's so many trades. I think some of you talked about in the comments, and as I sit down filming this, I only just realized how many there are. So let's just get right into it. This is going to be a bit of a long video. Sit down, get your popcorn, saddle up, and let's go. Okay, so I've tried to order these trades so that everything makes sense because a lot of people dropped stuff and other people picked them up. There are a couple of trades that went down. So there was one team that only did trades, and I'll talk about that team at the very end because I don't want to be jumping between trades between two teams and talking about two teams at the same time because I think that's just going to get really confusing. So hopefully it all works out. So the first team we're going to talk about is Mewtwo fan Nate, or just Nate. So Nate's transactions this week were he dropped Simipour for Go-Go, he dropped Delphox for Dusknoir, and he dropped Chestnut for Slowking. So I know that Nate was talking up Simipour in his interview, but I'm actually really glad he decided to drop it, just because he already has Cloyster, which was going to come to the majority of the games over Simipour anyway, because it has access to Rapid Spin and all these other moves, and I think that it's just a better offensive typing than Simipour is. It gets access also to Shell Smash, which is, I think, way better than Simipour. Even though Simipour does have a good base speed, I think just Cloyster is a better mon, in my opinion. I do like his pickup of Go-Go, just for the fact that he dropped another bulky grass type in Chestnut, and he's now picked up another one again, which really helps just cover that hole in the team and make sure he's keeping his defensive mons and a defensive core. I think that Go-Go also does have a bit of an advantage over Chestnut, just in the fact that it gets more reliable recovery in Milk Drink, while Chestnut only has Synthesis. I know this may not seem like a big deal, but the way in which Synthesis works could potentially be harmful just because it's subjected to the weather in the game, while Milk Drink is always going to give you that 50% of your HP back. I also like how Nate has covered up problems with his defensive pairing of Sylveon and Go-Goat, as while they are both weak to poison, which could be problematic. He's received Dusknoir from the free agent, who can be run quite tanky. I know that Dusknoir doesn't have the best HP stat of it's 45, it's pretty bad, but its special defense and defense stat make up for that, which are both 135, which balances him out quite a bit. He also has access to Mega Steelix, which resists poison completely, and I really like how Nate has managed to make sure that his defensive cores don't have too many overlapping weaknesses, and that some of his weaknesses are covered up by other mons in his team. I think he's done a really good job at that. While I do like that he picked up Dusknoir, I think it is a bit of a shame that he has lost his fire coverage for the team in Delphox. Fire is normally a really offensive typing, and having stab fire is normally really useful. I'm going to talk about some of Nate's later matchups, and you can kind of see that he does kind of miss having that fire stab in some of these matches, but overall, I do like that he picked up Dusknoir, but I'm not so sure about not having fire stab on the team. So the last transaction we are going to talk about with Nate is going to be the dropping of Chestnut for Slowking. I'm really interested to see where this pick goes, since I know that Nate was talking about Slowking having Nasty Plot when he dropped his Chestnut, which leads me to believe that he's veering towards using Slowking as a bulky setup sweeper. The ability that Slowking has is also really good. It has the ability Regenerator, which is just such a good ability in draft format. It gives you a third of your health back every time you switch. So as long as Nate plays it right, Slowking can always be healthy coming into the battle. So this makes Nate's final team Thundurus Incarnate, Hydreigon, Lucario, Sylveon, Cloyster, Slowking, Swallow, Dusknoir, Go-Goat, and Mega Steelix. I think Nate's team looks pretty solid at the moment. A good mix of offensive and defensive pressure. I think that as long as he can utilize his new pickups in conjunction with some of his star performers in Sylveon, that he can really turn around his season so far, and I look forward to seeing how he uses his new team. His road ahead is Game Boy Luke and the Bristol City Blazerkins, Galactic Elliott and the Chicago Cubchews, and Jodor and his Seattle Sea Kings. Without making this video too long, even though I already know it's going to be long, I do want to talk about these next couple of matches because it does give a good idea on how Nate's going to go and how his trades might pan out in the future. Of course, I'm no expert. They could go completely different to what I've said, but I do want to talk about it just a little bit. I also want to preface that I only want to talk about the traded mons in these matchups. Otherwise, I'd probably be doing the job of the pick'ems and this video will be like 2 hours long. I don't think that having a fire type matters as much in this game since Luke has access to Primarina and Tentacruel. The main fire type weakness on his team is Sizzle, which can generally be covered really well by one specially offensive mon carrying hidden power fire. As for the rest of his trades, I really don't think that Gogo matches up well in this match at all. Luke's access to Aerodactyl and a Landorus with Flyzinium Z really gives this thing little options, and Gogo can't wall Tentacruel effectively since Tentacruel has access to Poison Stab. Gogo is also going to have a terrible time breaking Mega Scissor, so I don't think that Gogo is necessarily a good option for this game. I think that a Nasty Plot Slowking could be good for this game if it is able to whittle down his opponent's team effectively, but he's really got to watch out for Luke's Necrozma as it can easily beat Slowking in a setup race. So in week 6, Nate will be taking on Elliott and the Chicago Cubchews, and I think this match is a really good match where it kind of shows that having that fire stab missing is going to be a real shame, since there are a lot of mons on his teams like Alolan Ninetales, Alolan Sandslash, Serena, and Scolipede, which can put way more pressure on Nate's team since he has no stab fire type to just come in on them and just threaten them out. And Nate is also probably forced to run more coverage move on his mons to deal with this than he maybe would have liked to see on the team previously. Gogo also doesn't have a good time here with mons like Alolan Ninetales, Sandslash, Scolipede, Chandelure, and Rotom Fam all giving it quite a hard time. Slowking is also really pressured by Scolipede, Rotom Fan, and can't really check Chandelure as well as it would like to, but overall could kind of be used as a defensive pivot if Nate is able to avoid getting predicted on his switch ends, but I don't know if that's something he would want to risk. So his last battle I'm going to talk about quickly is his battle against Joe, and I think that Slowking evens out a bit here since it does have super effective stab moves for Venusaur and Infernape, but it also does get kind of completely walled by a trade that Joe just made in Umbreon, which I will talk about more in a later part of the video. I can see defensive Gogo putting in some work if he is mindful of a U-turn Infernape, and Dusknoir also has its strengths and weaknesses as it gets access to Will-O-Wisp. And if Nate can successfully bait a Sucker Punch out of Bishop, he can basically cripple the Bishop for the rest of the match. He does need to be very careful of Umbreon though, again, which Dusknoir can't really touch. Now that we are done with Nate, we're going to move over to his buddy Kelly, aka Under the Radar, who is dropping his Mega Aggron for his Mega Sableye, Frogadier for Arbok, and he is trading Zerk with Galactic Elliott for Stakataka. I do actually think that the Mega Aggron pick for Sableye pick is a pretty decent pick on Kelly's behalf. He's traded a wall for another wall, but he also does get the ability Magic Bounce now. And Magic Bounce is just a really good ability because it's just like, do you want to set up rocks on me or spikes on me? No, they're now your problem. And I think that's really funny and it could be really useful, even though people might be predicting it. But it also means that Kelly doesn't really have to worry about hazards on his side of the field as much as just setting them up on the other side of the field because he has 3 Stealth Rockers on his team. I also really do like that he's traded his Frogadier for Arbok just because Frogadier wasn't really going to get that much usage anyways because he has Milotic, which is just probably a better pick to bring as a water type than Frogadier. It's more bulky, it has probably more access to things that are going to work, it's got better abilities as well. So I do think that him having Frogadier just dropped is fine. He does now pick up a poison type. He does get some poison stab in there, something that he did lack before. So I think that he's just kind of covering some holes. Arbok also does get access to Intimidate, which is really useful because it just means that it makes it just a little bit harder for offensive mons, physically offensive mons to set up, which I do think is very important to do in Draft League, just to make sure that the opponent is thinking, oh, they have Intimidate, should I run physically offensive? Or you kind of make them think, oh, if it can be run mixed, it's going to be run special. And the last thing that happened is he traded his Zerk to Elliott for Stakataka. I've also pretty sure I've seen Kelly use Stakataka in League, and he's also really good at using this mon. So I do think that this is a very good trade for Kelly. Stakataka is just such a good mon in its own right. Who cares that it's slow? Give me access to the most powerful Gyro Ball you've ever seen. That's Stab. It gets access to an amazing ability in Beast Boost. Its attack is so high. It's 131 base attack and its defense is 211. That is crazy. And its special defense, not even that bad. It's sitting at 101. Its HP stat 61, not the best stat, but Stakataka just gets so much access to really useful things on the team. And I think that Stakataka as a late game kind of cleanup because it's so bulky and because it has such good offensive prowess. It's just so good for Kelly's team because he's got so many mons that are good at breaking walls, and then he just has a good cleaner in Stack Attacker. This brings Kelly's team to Superior, Zygarde, Milotic, Stack Attacker, Darmanitan, Mesprit, Alolan Persian, Arbok, Wigglytuff, and Mega Sableye, which I think is just looking like such a well-balanced team. He's got a little bit of defensive pressure, he's got a bit of offensive pressure, and he's also got things that can also just cripple the opponent. Like, he's got Intimidate on his Arbok now, he's got the Parting Shot on Alolan Persian, and he's got Mega Sableye, which can just make your opponent do many crazy things because you've got to prep for Mega Sableye. So, Kelly's Week 5 opponent is going to be Kyle A and the Miami Dolphins, and this matchup looks a little bit interesting just because I can see Cresselia on Kyle's team, and I'm like, Cresselia is really good, but then I see Mega Sableye on Kelly's team, and I'm like, that is just a big check. And I don't want to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. Toxic Recover looks kind of really good for this team of Kyle's, but I don't actually think that's going to happen. I don't think that Toxic Stole is going to be the way that Kelly wins this game, but I do think that it is an option if he does maybe want to go there. I don't see Arbok being as good in this game as it might be in other games, just because I'm looking at Kyle's team and I see so many special attackers, or so many mons that I definitely normally run special attack, like Volcanion, Nidoqueen, Pelipper, Heliolisk, Kingdra, like Torkoal, Victreebel, Pidgeot Mega. They're all kind of mons that you would expect to be running especially not physically. So I don't know if Arbok's that good of a pick in this game, but I mean, it could come. I just don't really see it coming because I think that Arbok's biggest strength is its access to the ability Intimidate, and it's not as useful in this match as it might be in other matches. And I'm looking at the team and I kind of see Stack Attacker having some work, but also not. I think Stack Attacker would be used in this game for a late game cleanup. It can also be used to pressure out Diancie and also just kind of be worked around because I know it's Steel type and he has Victreebel and he also has Nidoqueen, which is not going to do too much against, but also it is a bit iffy because Nidoking is a ground type and, you know, Stack Attacker is 4 times weak to ground. So while it is a good check to Victreebel, it's not such a good check to Nidoqueen. I think that this matchup is going to come down a lot to how each team plays their respective strengths. Obviously, Kyle has the rain, and Kelly just has this good mix of like trying to kind of like put you in a position where you can't lose just by making sure your opponent has to make plays because you're forcing them with the abilities and the moves that you're using. So I think this is going to be a really interesting match. I think it's actually quite a level match, and I think that both teams have a chance to come out on top depending on how they prep. His next battle is against Tup and the Pirat Tatters. I'm so sorry if I've butchered that, Tup. I'm trying my best out here. I think something that's really interesting is that Tup has a lot of mons that can Toxic Spike stack, they can Spike stack, they can Stealth Rock against Kelly's team, but he has to be so careful about that because of Kelly picking up Mega Sableye, which I just think is so good because Aggron would have been weak to all of this stuff, or at least the spikes, but now it can't do anything about it. I also do think that Arbok could be good in this game because even if Tup wanted to bring Toxic Spikes with Roserade, Arbok can actually just remove the Toxic Spikes on entry, which I do think is quite good. I can also see Stack Attacker being kind of useful in this game, but I'm just going to say that because I just think Kelly is really good at using the mons he knows how to use, and I know that he's used Stack Attacker effectively. Obviously, he has to be careful of coverage moves like Earthquake from Tyranitar, but also a Gyro Ball is really going to hurt Tyranitar back at it. I am sorry that if these games aren't being like analyzed in depth, I am leaving that to the Pick'em crew who do an amazing job at it. I just want to kind of try and talk about these trades and how they could work. I am going all of this off the top of my head, so if it doesn't make a lot of sense, let me know in the comments. Just set me straight, tell me that I'm wrong. And we're going to be moving on to his Week 7 match, which is against MV and the San Diego Chimchargers. And MV is a really good battler, but so is Kelly, so I'm really interested to see how these two fight each other and who is going to come out on top in this one. Just by quickly looking at the teams, I can kind of see Stack Attacker being useful, but also not as useful as maybe in some other games. It would get trapped by Dugtrio, which I don't think is very good because Dugtrio can just put massive damage into the Stack Attacker, and since Stack Attacker doesn't have access to reliable recovery, that could really be problematic for Kelly. So I don't know if Stack Attacker is the best mod to have in this game. Envy does actually have a lot of access to physically offensive mons, so this could be a match where you kind of just see Arbok coming in just to be like a bit of an annoyance with Intimidate, making sure that he can't really do much with all of his mons. I would think that he would probably deter Envy from running like a physical Sceptile Mega, and it would veer him more towards running a specially offensive Sceptile. Arbok could also have a bit of a niche thing to bring if he thinks that Envy is going to bring Togekiss, just because the rest of his team probably doesn't deal with Togekiss as well as he would like to. So Kelly could obviously just bring Arbok for that week just to make sure that Togekiss doesn't have too much of a present, because a Togekiss setting up a nasty plot probably isn't the best thing for Kelly, and he might need to be mindful of that as well. Mega Sableye just does Mega Sableye things, just kind of make sure that he doesn't get too much rocks up. I don't think that Mega Sableye has maybe the best matchup in this game, because Envy just does have a lot of mons that just are wall breakers, like they set up and they break something, or, you know, even a mon like Victini, like a blue flare from Victini, that's just gonna do so much damage. So I think that Kelly does have to be a bit mindful that Mega Sableye is not maybe going to be the best pick in this match, but then Mega Sableye is always kind of a good pick because it forces prep for it anyway. So even if he forces Envy to maybe think of prep for his Mega Sableye and then just doesn't bring it, that could be pretty interesting to see as well. Next on our list of people to talk about trades and transactions, we have Joe, who has just made, you know, just freestyle changes to his team. He's changed half of his team going into week 5. I know that Joe is having a bit of bad luck with his battles. He's in a bit of a slump at the moment. I know that the WBE last season, he didn't manage to do that well, and I know that he is looking for his first win. So I think that he's making these changes in hopes that he can turn a team into something that he is really happy to be using, something he is more comfortable, and just relying on these picks to try and get a win out of the next couple of games. So, Joe is dropping his Sizzle for Bishop, he is dropping Jellicent for Alola, he's dropping Sneasel for Avalugg, he's dropping Granbull for Umbreon, and he's trading his Donphan to Gator for Slurpuff. I am kind of interested to see what you guys think about Joe's picks, because he has really made some wholesale changes to his team. He's really changed his direction, I think, from the original draft that he's made when he was drafting. I do like that he's like picked up Bishop. I think Bishop in its own right is a good mon, but I also think that Sizzle in its own right is a really good mon. I do kind of see why he does want to drop Sizzle though, because it is just kind of ruined by Hidden Power Fire or any specially offensive fire type move, and even physical ones will do so much to Sizzle. Bishop is also weak to fire, but it is less weak to fire than Sizzle, which I think is something that he might be going for. He might just be going to try and like cover up some of his big weaknesses in the team, because fire is quite a big weakness in his team at the moment, or it was at least. I also like that he dropped Jellicent for Alola, because Alola is just so good because it doesn't have as many weaknesses as Jellicent does. Jellicent is weak to Dark and Ghost type moves, which really makes it just a little bit less useful, and it means that it just can't wall things as well as Alola can. I know that I've seen someone run Alola sets that are just so dirty, and you know, if Joe wants to get a win that way, there's definitely ways that Alola can just like get a win. Like, I can't even like describe, like it was Wish, Protect, Toxic, and I think I just saw it decimate an entire team, and I think its last move was Scald, so that's something that could be quite interesting. I'm curious to know your guys' opinion on this, but I don't really agree with the Sneasel for Avalugg trade. I think that Sneasel is just such a good offensively pressured mon in a lower tiered, and that I kind of understand that he dropped it because he picked up Bishop, so he didn't really need that like really offensive lower tier dark type, but Sneasel is just such a good ice type offensively, and Avalugg is just not really. That's just my personal opinion, but I've never really seen anyone use Avalugg well. Like, I'm pretty sure people just picked up Avalugg because it was like a rapid spinner, it was in tier 5, and no one else wanted it because they picked up Sandslash or a Lowland Sandslash instead. So he also got Umbreon, which he picked up because he dropped Granbull. I'm kind of sad that he dropped Granbull. Granbull does have a lot of utility, but it isn't really the offensive fairy type. I can kind of understand that Granbull's offensive pressure isn't as good. It's more used as a cleric, and it's more used as a support mon because of its ability Intimidate. So he has dropped his Granbull and he's picked up another utility mon in Umbreon. Umbreon is just that mon that kind of runs Toxic, Foul Play, Protect, and Wish, and it Wish passes, it heals up all the rest of your team, which I do think could be useful for Joe's more offensive mons on his team. It can give them some more life because they don't have reliable recovery to heal themselves, which could be interesting to see. So the last transaction that Joe made was a trade. He traded his Donphan to Gator for Gator's Slurpuff. I think this is a really interesting trade because Donphan is kind of regarded quite highly in draft format. It's a really good stealth rocket. It's a really good defensive mon. It gets access to priority and ice shard, and he's traded it away for Slurpuff. He has gotten a more offensive fairy type now. I can see that, but I don't know if that was really worth it. I think Gator might have gotten just a slightly better trade just because Donphan is so good. It gets access to rapid spin. It's obviously not weak to stealth rocks, so you can really get in there and spin for free. Now Joe's like main source of rapid spinning is Avalugg, which is actually weak to stealth rocks. And his only other access to hazard removal is defog, and that's really bad because if he wants to set up things like stealth rocks himself, he can't really do that anymore because he'd just be defogging his own rocks away. And also stuff with sticky webs, like he can't use sticky webs effectively because Slurpuff obviously gets sticky webs because he can't really remove anything unless he wants to just sacrifice his Avalugg to spin once. And I don't think that's the best thing to do in draft format. You don't really want to bring sacks. You want each of your 6 months to be really useful, and I know I'm picking on this Avalugg pick a lot. I guess you guys can tell me I'm wrong in the description or the comments below, but I really don't think that Avalugg is that good of a mon, and he's kind of just losing all of his utility. He's losing his ability to just remove hazards, and I think that could be really detrimental going into the future games. Again, I like the Slurpuff pickup. It's got access to stuff like Belly Drum, and with sticky webs up, it can be such a prominent sweeper with just offensively pressuring everything on the team. Again, I think Slurpuff is not more of a, I'm gonna just kill everything right now. It's gonna be like a, you kind of like whittle it down a little bit and then Slurpuff goes in, or you get it in a situation where the opponent has to switch out and it sets up a belly drum and then it goes to sweep. But I really do think that Slurpuff needs the sticky webs to be a reliable sweeper, so I'm just wondering how Joe is going to use Slurpuff on his team. I know I'm hating on Joe's team a little bit, or at least it seems like I'm hating on it, but you do look at his overall team and you do think that it looks like quite a nice team. He's got Infernape, Bishop, Haxorus, Alola, Slurpuff, Umbreon, Sigilyph, Avalugg, Manectric, and Venusaur. I think the key to Joe getting his first win is keeping his win cons very healthy and making sure that he's just not taking too much damage in the early game. Or even if he is taking damage in the early game, making sure that he is able to heal up all of the damage, or at least most of the damage, making sure that mons like Alola and Umbreon are wish passing, keeping things healthy. So I think that Joe actually does have a pretty decent team. Not a big fan of the Avalugg pick, but I think that the rest of his team can work quite well together and maybe get Joe his first win quite soon. So Joe's Week 5 matchup is the Sin City Scissors coached by Patty Trills. I just think that Patty just has a really nice team, and I think that's going to be a problem because I'm looking at Patty's team of Lando T, Ferrothorn, Incineroar, and stuff like Rabombi, and I'm just thinking, oh no, Joe doesn't have very good removal, and Patty could just had to stack on him, and that's going to be a big problem. Obviously, Joe can just opt not to bring Stealth Rocks and just defog everything away or rapid spin stuff away, but Avalugg coming in on like 3 layers of spikes and Stealth Rock is like almost dead already. So I'm just really curious to see how this works out because I think that if Patty brings hazards, it's going to be quite detrimental to the rest of Joe's team. I don't know if Joe is going to get his first win against Patty. Just looking at the matchup, I think that Joe is just at a bit of a disadvantage because Rabombi actually just looks really good in this matchup. And I'm just looking at it now and I'm thinking this might be hard for Joe to get his first wins just with the trades he's made because I feel like Patty puts so much offensive pressure on and he can stack hazards and then he'll win that way. But we'll see. And also, you know, Patty also has access to double Intimidators, which is also so useful and it's crazy. And a lot of the mons that Joe has picked up are quite like physically offensive, like Bishop, Avalugg, Umbreon, and Slurpuff are normally run physically. So I think that's going to be a bit of a problem maybe. So for week 6, he will be facing the Atlanta Umbreons coached by Feint Attacks, and this is a match where I think the Bishop trade might pay off because Bishop is actually going to be quite good in this match. A +2 Sucker Punch is going to do so much damage to everything on this team basically. He doesn't have many resist for it at all. I think the only problem he's going to be careful of is just being burnt or Will-O-Wisp by Entei, because if he just gets burnt, he kind of loses that edge that he has, that he just gained from dropping Scissor for Bishop. He just loses it because his Sucker Punches aren't going to be doing very much at all. So I do think that the Bishop pickup is going to be quite good in this match. I think that Alola and Umbreon as supports can be really good, just making sure that everything stays healthy in the match, making sure that his win cons stay healthy. Like something like Bishop, which can't recover itself, can get wish passed into, making sure that it's always putting on pressure in his team. I don't see Slurpuff being that good in this match just because he's got things like Entei and stuff that can just really just wall Slurpuff, like Fortress can kind of wall Slurpuff as well, because Slurpuff's main like attacking move is going to be Play Rough. So if he can get rid of some of the stuff that resists it, he can probably do quite well. Like Entei's going to resist it, but then he's also got stuff on Feint Attack's teams that's really weak to Slurpuff, setting up like Komodo, Flygon, stuff like that, which is just going to take a lot of damage from a Play Rough. So we've already talked about this one, but his week 7 match is going to be against Mewtwo fan Nate and his New York Nobats. So I've already touched on this, but I'm just going to kind of touch on something that I think is just going to be the most important for this game, and I think it's going to be how Joe uses his Umbreon, because Umbreon does wall quite a bit of Nate's team. So as long as he can play Umbreon quite smart, I think that he has a good chance to maybe come up on top of this battle. Again, it always lies in prep and how much you prep, but I do think just looking at the teams from now, I do actually think that Joe does have a slight advantage with his team. I know I said I wasn't going to talk about non-trade picks, but stuff like Infernape can really go to town on his team. So I'm really interested to see how this battle plays out. I do think Joe has a bit of an edge. I think that his trades here will show that he's probably done some good trades here. Again, don't really think Avalug's that useful. Sorry, Avalug. So now that we are done with Joe's many trades, we're going to be moving on to InVividColor, coach of the South Texas Sableyes. So the transactions that the South Texas Sableyes have made this week are they are dropping Mega Sharpedo for Mega Aggron, Alolan Sandslash for Sneasel, and Moltres for Rapidash. I actually agree with like all of these picks that he's made. He's dropped his Alolan Sandslash, which really doesn't do much without the hail, and he's picked up his Sneasel, which obviously he just got from Joe just before because Joe dropped it. And I think that obviously Sneasel, as I said before, puts so much offensive pressure on. It's really good for a low tier Dark and Ice type, some of the best offensive typings in the game. I also really agree with his pick to drop Mega Sharpedo for Mega Aggron. Mega Sharpedo is just not as good if you have to Mega first turn, which is really annoying, but it sucks that, you know, the viability of Mega Sharpedo goes down so much because you have to Mega first turn. Mega Aggron is just a really good mod, and I'm just going to say that now. I really love Mega Aggron. Its ability filter is just so useful. It's just making super effective moves do so much less, and it just really makes Aggron such a good wall. It gets access to Stealth Rocks, it gets access to Heavy Slam, and a Heavy Slam from a Mega Aggron is going to hurt. Mega Aggron also gets access to T-Wave, which is just a really good move because you make everything slower, you Heavy Slam it, and things die, and then Parahax comes in and it makes the opponent sad, but Mega Aggron is Mega Aggron, gonna do Mega Aggron things. Mega Aggron just has a more diverse move pool than people would originally think. You look at Mega Aggron, you're like, it's a Steel Rock, it's going to have Steel Rock moves and maybe a ground move, but it actually does have quite a bit of coverage, and I think that Mega Aggron is going to do a lot better on InVividColor's team than Sharpedo was going to do, because Sharpedo, if any of you watched the match against Joey, it just couldn't do much because it just wasn't fast enough. If it was faster, it would have done so much better. And the last drop we are going to talk about is his drop of Moltres for Rapidash, which I agree with because having something that's 4 times weak to rocks is just really not great. And the fact that Rapidash is so fast and it's only like it's weak to rocks still, but it's not as weak to rocks as Moltres. And if he needs a fire type, you always want to have a fire type on there. And I think that Rapidash is just a bit of a better mon probably for his team than Moltres is, because let's just quickly talk about his whole team and then we can kind of circle around and talk about his trades as well. So his full team is Mew, Tapu Bulu, Hawlucha, Nidoking, Galvantula, Noivern, Sneasel, Barbaracle, Rapidash, and Mega Aggron. And I'm just looking at this team and it just looks so much more even than it did before all of these trades went through. Just looking at his team, it felt like he had more offense and not enough defense, and now he's got Mega Aggron, which helps with that a lot more. He has traded his Alolan Sandslash for Sneasel, which I think just puts on more offensive pressure than Alolan Sandslash did, and the fact that Moltres and Rapidash I just think is a good pick because he lessens the effect of rocks on his team. So I'm really just going to talk about his next 3 opponents really quickly because I do think that this video is getting quite long and I'm really sorry about this. I will try to be more succinct in my points next week. There is just so many trades to get through and not a lot of time to get through them all. So I'm going to just quickly talk about his next 3 opponents. I'm just going to really talk about, just give you a general overview. I've looked at the matches quite quickly. You can go look at them again. But his week 5, 6, and 7 matches are the New York Marauders, the Los Angeles Spice, and the Tennessee Trubbish. And I'm looking at these games and I'm just thinking, wow, well. He has just pretty good matchups against them all. I really do think that he's going to do quite well with his new team. Mega Aggron was just such a good addition. Like, I really think that that was his probably the best pick he made. I think the Alolan Sandslash for the Sneasel was also really good, and the Rapidash for Moltres was just kind of, I feel like him just being like, Rapidash is probably going to be more useful than Moltres, and Moltres is really weak to rocks, and I don't really need that on the team. So moving on, we're going to talk about probably someone you all know. It's Joey, aka Pokeyam MD, and he is the coach of the Bronx Beartics. He is very well known for being very good in Draft League format. So the trade that went through is that Joey is going to trade his Volcarona to Gator for Zeraora. And I've got some words from Joey himself, and it's not that he doesn't like Volcarona, it is that he just really wants to use Zeraora. And Zeraora is really good against Wolf, and it's also that he did actually plan to swap entire teams in the league and then swap back, but that fell through just because I don't think the league was going to allow it. Because yes, guys, this league does have unlimited trades, so technically you could have traded your entire team to someone else and then traded it back the week after. So anyway, what is actually happening with this pick, and I'm just going to say it now because I don't want to mention it in the next video because I kind of just want everyone to assume it's going back to normal, is they're only trading for 1 week. Joey is receiving Zeraora to fight Wolfie, and then he is trading Zeraora back to Gator for the next week, and he will get his Volcarona back. The league did discuss it. They decided that it was all fine. Joey obviously wouldn't have done it if the league wasn't okay with it, but he does get Volk back for next week, so this Zeraora pick is only for this week. Joey just wanted to preface that it doesn't really matter for playoff matches because he's going to get Volcarona back, and he's just using Zeraora for 1 week because he just wants to have a bit of fun with it. He does know that some people are going to be like, oh, he's only using this for Wolfie and that's cheating, but I mean, it really doesn't matter in the long run since the team is staying the same and he is just making a trade, and it was accepted by the league. So while I am curious to see what you guys think, is this a bit of an interesting thing to do, to trade him on for a week to have the advantage and trade it back just in time so he can keep his team? What do you guys think on this? I think it's honestly fine. Like, this league is meant to be for fun. It's not supposed to be super competitive, and if he wants to use Zeraora for a week and it just happens to be so good for Wolfie, then I think that's okay. Okay, so I've started to lose my voice talking about all of these picks, so I am actually going to stop talking about the future matches. You do know, obviously, that he'll be taking on Wolfie and he wants to use Zeraora. If he doesn't bring Zeraora, that's kind of weird because he traded specifically to use it in the match. So I think Wolf and Joey both know that Zeraora is coming, and then for the rest of the matches, he will be using Volcarona, and that is just how it is going to go. But yeah, I think I'm going to try and save my voice to get through everyone's trades and transactions, and I'm not going to talk about the future matchups for some of them because I think it's just dragging the video out a little bit too long, but I will try to make sure that everything is more succinct in the next video. So with that being said, I'm going to talk about Elliott, aka the Chicago Cubs coaches, trades and transactions next. So Elliott did a couple of interesting things. He traded his Stack Attacker to Kelly for Xurkitree, and then he immediately dropped Xurkitree for Rotom Fan. He also dropped Porygon Z for Alolan Sandslash, Mega Ampharos for Mega Garchomp, and Sandslash for Gator. I kind of do like his picks in the end because he did actually get Alolan Sandslash, which is really good to pair with his Alolan Ninetales. I've seen Dan use it in a previous league, and it worked very well for him. So I think that this is going to be quite good for Elliott, and I'm going to see if Elliott can replicate the success that Dan had with this duo. So I think that the trade for Stack Attacker and Zerk was just a bit strategic, so they both weren't using up all of their free agent picks, because you only get 4 free agent picks, but you get unlimited trades. So I think he was going to drop Stack Attacker anyway, but if he traded it to Kelly, Kelly got something he wanted and didn't have to use a free pick, and then he could just drop Zerk anyway to get what he actually wanted. I've seen Elliott use Mega Garchomp before, and I think Elliott is a great user of Mega Garchomp. I'm more a fan of normal Garchomp, but I think that Elliott knows what he's doing when it comes to using Mega Garchomp, so I think that he's probably going to find quite a bit of success with it. I am a big believer in Rotom Fan. I used Rotom Fan a lot in my day as a Draft League battler. Now I just sit here and do analyst videos. But I think that Rotom Fan is honestly just such a good mod. Its ability kind of sucks because it is Levitate and it's kind of useless because it's already Flying type. But you know, Rotom Fan just actually does do quite a bit. It's got like access to all of the utility that the other Rotoms have. And it's just got access to, you know, stab Flying type moves, Air Slash, baby. I think Gator is like one of like the best Eviolite users. There's a lot of good Eviolite users out there, but Gator just gets massive bulk, and I think a lot of Gator sets use like bulk up, and then it has like Muck Punch, access to priority, which is really amazing. And I think that Gator is a really good pickup in Obviously, he picked up a Alolan Sandslash, he dropped Sandslash. I think that Gator's a good pickup to replace the Sandslash pick. So this makes Elliott's final team Hooper Unbound, Alolan Ninetales, Scolipede, Chandelure, Serena, Mantine, Alolan Sandslash, Gator, Rotom Fan, and Mega Garchomp. I'm just looking at Elliott's team, and I'm just going to say that I think he's balanced his team really well. It's looking like a really good team. I think that he knows what his strengths are, and he knows what his weaknesses were, and he patched things up quite well. I think that his Sandslash for Alolan Sandslash pick is just really smart on his behalf, and the fact that InVividColor dropped it, I think, is like really good for Elliott, because now a Ninetales is just that much more useful for helping Alolan Sandslash to really just come into a league of its own. And with that, we're going to move on to Gator. So Gator just did 2 trades this week. He traded, obviously, for Volcarona from Joey, and he got Zeraora traded away just for a week, though. And he also traded his Slurpuff for Donphan from Joe. And I just okay, listen, I'm a bit of a fangirl. Gator's a really good battler. I think that Gator knows what he's doing, and if Gator thinks that Donphan's going to do well on his team, Donphan's going to do well on his team. I also think that Donphan just gives him a bit more of a bulky ground type, because obviously Dugtrio is just not bulky at all. Dugtrio's main thing is that it has the ability to trap things and then revenge kill, but Donphan gives him the ability to just have a more bulky ground type if he does need it, if he does think it's going to be better in the matchup. Also gets access to Priority Eyeshad, which is always nice, and it's also a Rapid Spinner and a Stealth Rocker. For the week that Gator does have Volcarona, I just think it's going to be really good, because the introduction of Z-moves just made Volcarona just that much better. After it's set up, it's just so devastating to just hit with a Savage Spin Out or an Inferno Overdrive, and it's just insane to see how much it can do. It does obviously have to be careful of rocks and entry hazards and stuff like that, because it is quite weak to it, but as long as you're keeping your side of the field clear and getting it in on something that can't touch it, and in return you just chuck a Savage Spin Out or an Inferno Overdrive and something just drops, and then Volcarona really just has the potential to sweep after it's, being set up. So I don't have too much to say other than Gator's a good battler, and Gator's going to do what Gator's going to do with these mons. Obviously, he's going to have Zeraora back, so he's just going to have this really fast electric type back after the 1 week, which is this week, that he's going to have Volcarona. But I do think that Donphan is a good long-term trade, because it just does give him some more versatility in what he can do with some of his mons. So, going over Gator's team, he has Heatran, Keldeo, Celebi, Volcarona for 1 week, Donphan, Archeops, Garbodor, Bouffalant, Pyukumuku, and Mega Heracross. And this team just looks so offensively scary that I am scared for other people. And I think that that's why Donphan is just really good, because it does give him a bit of a wall. We have done it, guys. We are on to the last transaction for this week, and it is going to be Magnitude, the founder of Draft League format, and your coach of the Milwaukee Swordsbuck, dropping Aggron for Quillfish. And I have gotten this request, and I am going to fulfill it. I must call Quillfish the Puffy Boy. So I am a little sad, because I do put Aggron in pretty high regard. I do like Aggron as a stealth rocker and just a really good mon for soaking up damage, but I do kind of really like the Puffy Boy pick. Quillfish can set spikes, it can set toxic spikes, and it's got pretty decent physical bulk and a pretty good defensive typing. Water Poison is one of the best defensive typings that you can have. Quillfish is also good because you know what it gets? It gets Destiny Bonds. So even if you're underrating the Quillfish, you don't think Quillfish is going to do anything, bam, Destiny Bond, you're dead as well. Also, it does get ability Intimidate, which is really useful. It gets Poison Point, not as useful. It also gets Swift Swim. Now, I'm bringing up Swift Swim because he has Politoed, he has Mega Swampert, and now he has a Swift Swim Quillfish, which is going to outspeed a lot of things. So, hey, you may be doubting the Quillfish, but Swords Dance Swift Swim Quillfish might just ruin your day. Since Magnitude is going for more, I think of a rain team. We've got 2 rain teams going on. Kyle also has his rain team, and Magnitude has his. I think that it was actually probably more beneficial for him to drop Aggron and pick up some more rain usability than to probably just keep Aggron. I really like Steve's pick. I think Quillfish is just so underrated as a mon, especially if you're putting it in the rain. So I'm really excited to see what Magnitude does with this. And guys, we have finally done it. We are finally at the end of trades and transactions. I'm so sorry that this video is so long, a little bit rambly, and it's just not as polished as I would like it to be, but I did want to get these out to you, and I just did want to give you some initial thoughts on what I think these trades and transactions are going to be like. Please, leave your own opinions in the comments down below. I will be reading them all. I'll be replying to them. And of course, give some feedback. I love seeing the feedback that you guys give for this show. Every week you make it just that much better. And I really do appreciate all the support. Please go do check out all the analysts. Please go check out my co-host Aaron, who actually hasn't filmed with me since we started Trade Talk. But next week, I promise you, there will be a trade talk with both of us in it, and it will be amazing, and you'll just see us banter back and forth about picks we think that are good and picks we think that are bad. Cheers, guys, and I will see you all later.